Tignan niyo po ang record ng ating mga kandidato. Hindi po kagaya ng mga nakikita natin sa mga iba't ibang partido. Hirap na hirap makakuha ng kanilang mga miyembro.
Well, ang game plan nila ay gusto nilang makonvict si Inday Sara before June 30 para magkaroon ng bagong vice president. Ang mga Duterte kasi, ang sumusuporta mga ordinaryong tao, masang Pilipino. Silang sumuporta sa kanya noong 2016. At iyon ang sumusuporta kay VP Inday Sara rin. Sila rin ang nagluklok sa kanya vice presidente. Pero ang sumusuporta dito sa Pangulo ay ito yung mga oligarchs. Alam naman natin yon. Sila ay mayayaman. Na sila yung dating hindi sila makaporma ng todo-todo kay Pangulong Digong.
All right, it's an honor to have you here. You've been the woman of the hour in the lower house when the hearings were held. I want to start with this question. Is this an election issue for you, specifically the 2nd District of Batangas? Election issue ba ito para sa distrito po ninyo?
I believe yes, Karen, because the issue of an impeachment is an issue of accountability or non-accountability. So just like any other public officials who are seeking for election or re-election, we will be judged by the people as to the position that we are taking with respect to the impeachment trial. At kahit siguro we opt to be silent, I think the people will be demanding that the public officials should disclose kung anong stand natin about this impeachment.
And what about your constituents? You had Representative Paulo Duterte say that all those who signed, their names should be exposed on social media. Hindi ba nakita ng mga kongresistang ito ang suporta ng INC kay Sara Duterte? What do your constituents say?
I wish to believe, Kara, that what we do in our respective district is what really matters to our kababayan, no? Bagaman we say that INC position is significant, impeachment trial is an issue which is also significant for the purpose of election. Ultimately, Karen, we will be judged as representative kung paano namin pinaglingkuran ang aming mga kababayan.
Is the INC vote a factor for you and your colleagues, frankly, who are running for re-election?
I have always believed that INC is a factor kasi tayo po'y gumagalang at naniniwala sa stand ng INC. However, Karen, this is a constitutional duty na hindi po natin pwedeng talikuran. We cannot brush aside kasama po sa mga tungkulin na ating pinanumpaan. So we are hoping and praying that this responsibility of the prosecution team will be appreciated by our kababayan as a solemn duty towards our constituents and fellow Filipino citizens.
Okay, bago tayo mapunta sa schedule, no, I wanted to ask you, when the speaker called on his fellow members to convene that day, is it true that you were all asked to leave your cell phones? Because that's what Representative Sendanya also confirmed, that you were asked to deposit your cell phones.
Actually, Karen, that is a practice we do. Some do live, some do not live, no? It is a practice that we observe, but it is not actually strictly mandated. So on that particular meeting that you were referring, merong mga kongs na may dalang cellphone, merong mga kongs na nag-leave ng cellphone upon entry, which is a practice not unusual to us.
And there were 3 impeachment complaints that were sitting in Congress. They were not delivered to the Speaker's office. And yet, the 4th impeachment complaint, just in a day, it had 215 signatures. Sinabi ni Congressman Duterte na ang pasimuno nung pang-apat na impeachment complaint and who gathered the signatures was Representative Garin. I wanted to ask you, how did the fourth impeachment complaint come about?
Let me start, Karen, with the 3 impeachment complaints, no? Since they were filed, nagkaroon po ng individual, should I say, evaluation ang members ng House. Like me, for example, I personally requested for my own copy, and then I go over the articles of impeachment of the first, the second, and the third complaint. Ang naging observation ko po, the first complaint is too long. I believe it's 23 articles. For the second and the third, they are too short. And then come this recent incident, Karen. There was a party-initiated meeting where the consensus of the majority of the House was considered already. We have to always remember that we are a collegial body. I cannot decide alone. The other Kongs cannot decide alone. So through that meeting where the political parties were very significant, we were able to come up with our common position, most especially the 215 members of the House, that we need to come up with a fourth impeachment complaint. And we need to push through with this impeachment process. So, in other words, Karen, it was not initiated by anyone. Instead, it was a collegial decision of the supermajority of the 19th Congress of the Philippines through, of course, the party's intercession.
Oo. I think it's important for the public to understand this. Thank you for that. Because the first impeachment complaint is technically, it was from 73, I believe 72 or 73 ordinary citizens, right? Where Laila de Lima was the spokesperson for the first complaint. The second and third also initiated by ordinary citizens sponsored by a member of Congress. The fourth takes on a different phase. It is initiated, is this correct, by parties?
That is true, Karen. And to be specific, the members of the parties, composed by 215 ultimate members of the 19th Congress of the Philippines. And what is significant about this, Karen, no? Dun sa first, second, and third complaint, it is a matter of rule na dapat idaan mo muna siya sa Justice Committee, which is given a period of 60 days to resolve whether to approve or to disapprove the impeachment complaint before you refer it to the plenary for the approval of the body. But with respect to the fourth mode, that is the endorsement of 1/3 of the members of the House at least, no? We will be able to do away with the hearing in the Justice Committee, which I believe we will not be able to catch up with the timeline considering the very limited number of sessions which are remaining already before we adjourn and before the 19th Congress ends on June 30 of 2025. So in a way, we save the impeachment process from being barred by the 1-year prescription by being able to transmit the fourth impeachment complaint with the support of at least 1/3, to be specific, 215, to the Senate right before we adjourned last February 5 of 2025.
All right, speaking with Senate President Cheese Escudero, could you have delivered it? I mean, not you personally. Could the House have sent that fourth impeachment complaint? Couldn't it have been sent earlier? He told us that it reached the Senate close to 5 in the afternoon.
Karen, from my end, no, it is really my humble submission that the impeachment court can convene even during recess. So, timeline is really not an issue for me. I maintain the position that impeachment is different from a legislative process. Yung legislative work ng Congress, we really need to do that while on session. However, impeachment proceedings can be done even when we are on recess. So, for me, Karen, it is my humble submission, with all due respect to SP Cheese Escudero, that whether we transmit it on February 5 or much earlier than the set date, it's no longer material. What is material, we were able to transmit it on time, and the Senate, I believe, has an ample opportunity to convene as an impeachment court or not, and to take their oath as impeachment court judges or not. Nonetheless, Karen, of course, we submit to the wisdom, the authority of the Senate, kasi sila itong impeachment court eh. They will be sitting as the impeachment court judges, the 23 senators. So, regardless of the varying legal opinions of the luminaries and even the members of the prosecution team, even the president, ultimately, we're submitting to the proper authority, the rightful authority. And of course, that is the Philippine Senate, which will be sitting as the impeachment court judges.
All right, may kasabihan tayo, justice delayed is justice denied. With the new timeline that Senate President Cheese Escudero announced, he said that the trial will begin after the SONA of President Marcos Jr. If we count starting today, that would mean that the impeachment trial will begin 5 months after. Historically, that is the longest. Si Erap, when he was impeached, siguro after a few weeks, the Senate already convened as an impeachment court. With Corona, after he was impeached, nagkaroon ng recess, pero it was convened, right? Right away also, siguro within a month, into an impeachment court. Ito ang una na 5 months after. What do you make of that?
Well, from my end, I really wish that we proceed right away, no? That is because of my appreciation that this is a constitutional duty that we should not delay, no? But of course, I wish to defer to the Philippine Senate. Ayoko namang isipin that the Filipino people are being denied with their justice, no? And I wish to give credit also to the pronouncement of SP Cheese na hindi naman porket yung trial will be happening after the SONA, wala nang gagawin. He made pronouncement already that during the break, they can start with the rules, they can proceed with its approval, and he even made mention about the pre-trial proceedings, which is a very important part of the trial proceedings, no? Kasi dito sa pre-trial, nagkakaroon na ng marking ng exhibits, listing of evidence, listing of witnesses, stipulation of facts, and it actually refines the direction that we will be leading to as we approach the trial dates of the impeachment complaint. So, I wish to take that positively, no? Na bagaman ang pronouncement ni SP Cheese, trial will be after the SONA, nonetheless, important part of the entire trial proceedings will be happening during this recess.
Okay, now does it matter that February 11 was the start of the national campaign? And March 11, I believe, is the start of Congress and the local, no? Tama ito. So, ang tanong, do you see this as, frankly speaking, a hindrance to possibly why the Senate chose not to convene? Because you do have 12 of their members who need to campaign, right?
Yes, Karen, I wish to give them the benefit of the doubt, no? Siguro naman it is not really because of this campaign period that is hindering the Senate to convene right away, no? Kasi kami sa prosecution, meron din kaming sariling mga laban But
Oo.
nevertheless, we are appreciating this as a constitutional duty. So in spite of the demands of campaign in our respective districts, we are all ready to
Oo.
to be engaged or
Oo.
to engage
But
in this
you heard,
prosecution work.
you know, it's good you're giving the Senate the benefit of the doubt, but you heard Senator J.V. Ejercito, how could they convene? Kalahati daw ng Senado, wala doon. It came from his mouth. Kalahati ng Senado, wala doon, nangangampanya. Hindi sila siguradong mananalo. And siguro yung iba sa totoo lang nakabakasyon. That's also possible because they're adjourned.
I cannot speak for them, Karen, no? But just like in the lower house, this is a collegial decision that they need to come up with, no? Siguro for Senator JV, that is an important consideration. But for the rest of the senators who have not commented on the issue, I'd rather give them the benefit of the doubt with
Okay.
respect to the reason why they opted to convene on a later date, just for the
Okay.
purpose of initial matters prior to the trial proper.
All right, and you have to forgive me for this. I'm going to press on a bit because Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio has issued a statement, and I want to ask you, you being a lawyer, if you agree. He said the president can actually call for a special session, right? So he said the president can call for a special session, tackle, let's say, another issue, and then include already the impeachment. That's one. But then you have SPG saying, hindi naman nagpapatawag. No, you have the president saying the Senate isn't asking for a special session. So, ang tanong ko, under the Constitution, who is supposed to initiate a special session? Is it the president or is it the Senate? Is it the clamor of the senators?
Actually, Karen, the Constitution is silent as who should take the initiative, no? And we've heard it loud and clear. Mukhang naghihintayan sila. The president wanted the Senate to initiate a request, while SP is waiting for the president to initiate a request, no? So, I think it's a matter of who will start initiating that special session. But as to the existing rules, the rules are silent as to who will initiate the same. Nevertheless, Karen, no? On the part of the president, I interpret the same as giving deference to the Senate, na sa halip pangunahan niya, he'd rather wait kung anong maging position ng Senate. That is in recognition of the principle of separation of power. Alam ng ating presidente that the impeachment court is the Senate, a work which does not belong anymore to the executive. Bagaman they have the authority to initiate the special session. Nevertheless, it only bolsters yung position ng presidente na hindi kami makikialam. If you will initiate a request, we will grant and act on it. But if there is no request, then we will be maintaining our position. Just observe kung anong gagawin ng impeachment court.
Okay. All right. Now, the new rules. So, Senate President Chis Escudero believes that with the new rules, the trial could actually be finished in 2 to 3 months. Coronas took roughly 4 to 5 months, right? And of course, naudlot ang kay Erap Estrada after 1.5 months. Naudlot yon. Let's talk about the new rules that the Supreme Court released after the impeachment trial of Renato Corona, and perhaps you can explain it in layman's term. So, Senate President Escudero said now there is a requirement for the submission of judicial affidavits. Explain that to the public. How different is that from the Corona impeachment trial?
I am not very particular about the Corona impeachment trial, Karen. As a matter of fact, this is the first time that I am experiencing impeachment process, no? Nonetheless, I can make a comparison with an ordinary court proceedings. And that judicial affidavit, which you mentioned, is very significant because it actually provides all the material allegations of the witnesses who will be taking the witness stand. So in other words, instead of a very lengthy question and answer proceedings before the impeachment court, it will be a little shortened because all that the witness need to do is to identify, that is my signature, that is my testimony, I put that in writing, and under my present oath, pinanuumpaan ko na totoo at voluntary ang pagka-execute ko ng testimonyang yan. So in other words, Karen, yung direct
Yun ba yun?
examination,
Walang direct examination, walang cross?
the judicial affidavit actually takes the place of direct examination. But
I
it does
don't
not.
think the public will like that. The public won't like that,
I
Representative.
understand, but
Yes,
it
because-
does not. It does not prohibit the counsel offering the witness from raising follow-up questions for the
Yes.
purpose of direct examination, no? And I think the interest of the public rises really not on the direct but instead on the cross-examination. That cross-examination is not covered by the judicial affidavit because the questions from the cross will be raised by the opposing counsel, no? The direct examination is the one being conducted by the counsel offering the witness.
Yes.
Ito na po yung judicial affidavit namin. This contains the material allegations of the witness. If there will be additional questions, he can propound those additional questions. But once done, papasok po yung opposing counsel, wala siyang judicial affidavit because the purpose of the cross is to check the veracity of the direct examination. So I think that action that the public is looking forward to see will still be there in spite of the use of the judicial affidavit. And ako, naniniwala ako personally doon sa significance ng judicial affidavit is in as far as saving time is concerned. Kasi kapag ka naman yung abogado mag-offer ng witness, ang magdadirect, most likely anticipated na rin ng witness yung mga questions. So you can actually put that in writing to shorten the time.
Oo. So wala na ang direct, but you can cross-examine, and the senators asking as judges can still ask questions.
Even during direct,
Yeah.
because the judges of the impeachment court are provided with a lot of leeway to make clarificatory questions. So ibig sabihin nun, Karen, kahit may direct, kahit ang iyong direct examination is presented by way of judicial affidavit, pwede pa rin mag-additional direct yung counsel who offers the witness. Pwede rin mag-clarificatory ang impeachment court judges. Pagdating naman doon sa opposing counsel, full-blown cross-examination yan.
And I just want to add, no, it's interesting that I don't know if I'm old. Head Start is a show that we go on conversations. It's like having coffee, but I've actually covered already the ERA and Corona impeachment trial. So I find it interesting that this is your first, which makes me think that you're younger than I am. But let's move on from that story. Is this the impeachment trial, once it goes on full coverage, I'd like to say, dun nalalaman kasi ng botante, una, yung tamad, yung walang alam, yung hindi nag-aral, dun nalalaman ng botante, I don't want to use other words, but dun nalalaman ng botante at dapat ko tong iboto, matalino pala to. Kasi dun lumalabas, pwedeng lumabas ang galing ng isang senador, prosecutor, doon lumalabas sa impeachment trial. As Senate President Cheese Escudero said, him presiding could be historical, but he said, Karen, it could also make or break a legislator. Don't you agree?
That is very much correct, Karen. We will be judged by the public on the way we perform. We will be performing on this impeachment trial. And you're very much correct also when you said, hindi pwedeng hindi mag-aaral. Dapat mag-aral. Not only the prosecution team, but even the defense team and even the impeachment court judges. Because the clarificatory questions which you will be raising will be judged as well by the people. And if these are not sensible, if these are not relevant, if these are not significant to the issue, baka ma-disappoint. 'Di ba? yung ating mga kapwa Pilipino.
Oo. Now, other than that particular rule, the Supreme Court also now requires a more detailed pre-trial brief. Kasama na ang ebidensya, nandun na. Wala daw sorpresa. So, tinanong ko to kay Senate President Escudero, during ERAP's time, the walkout happened because of the refusal to open the second envelope. Do you remember that? Right? So the second envelope was a surprise. So they declined to open it. The prosecutors walked out. So that was really the precursor to EDSA 2. So ang tanong ko ngayon with the new rules, paano to? Wala nang surprise? Paano kung within the hearing biglang may magsabi, Representative Luistro, takot lang ako noon. Pero eto, gusto ko na magsalita. May bago kong ebidensya. Paano yun?
In that case, Karen, newly discovered evidence, that will be allowed as an exception to the general rule, no? The significance of that pre-trial proceedings, tama ka, bawal ang mga surprise evidence. But it doesn't mean that the prosecution or the defense is totally prohibited from introducing additional new evidence. But there are existing rules, and the rule is, dapat late mo na talaga na-discover. That should be subsequent to the pre-trial para i-allow ka ng impeachment court. And I think the wisdom, the discretion, the authority of the impeachment court judges will be very significant once this issue is presented before them.
Oh, so right now, how many prosecutors are there? Are you 11 at this point?
I believe we're 11.
Okay. Are you allowed to add, given the fact that this will cross to the 20th Congress, or it's at 11 period?
I believe yes, we are allowed to replace at the very least, no? Kasi there's an upcoming election. Although I hope and pray that all of us will win. Pero if some of us will not make it this election, I think the House will be constrained to make a replacement to complete the 11 prosecutors.
But it should only be 11 under the rules? That's the number?
I believe 11 is the proper number.
Okay. Why did you say proper? That's interesting.
Because we try to inquire if we can add some. And I remember the House leader saying that 11 should be proper.
Okay. Hanggang 11
Let me look into that if that is a matter of rule.
Okay. All right. Now, you were asked at a press conference who is leading the prosecutors, and you said we are all equal. You know, that's great. You know, equality is great, but who's taking the lead? Right? Paano yun?
We are co-equal prosecutors, Karen.
Okay. But in terms of strategy, for example,
I wish to believe that we will be making co-equal contribution, co-equal representation of the House of Representatives, the 11 of us, in the prosecution team. Bagaman we are submitting to the wisdom of the most senior members of the prosec team, no? If you will remember, we have on board si Congressman Acop, no? We also have on board si Minority Leader Nonoy Libanan. For most of us, parang mas marami sa amin first termer no? So we are really submitting to their wisdom. We are relying for their guidance as we go along with this impeachment process. But as to the explicit understanding or designation with respect to who's gonna lead, wala po. We are silent about that matter, so it is our understanding that we will be making co-equal representations and contributions as members of the prosecution team.
Okay. Well, because if we look back, and I could be corrected on this, so we have Neil Tupas Jr. He was the chief of the prosecution team. And I'm not sure if it was Joker Arroyo who led the prosecution team of ERAP. And I think the reason that's being asked is if there's no leader, it's good that you're co-equal. But without a leader, it will be very difficult in terms of strategy. How do we go from here? How do we cross-examine? What do we take if, let's say, Sara Duterte's team suddenly releases this? You know, that kind. All right, that's one. Number two, will you also be getting private lawyers or no more?
With respect to the situation of having no lead prosecutor, no, I believe that those challenges as to what strategy to take, how to address these contingencies, I
Yeah.
think we can counter that by way of preparing thoroughly for the upcoming trials all together, the 11 prosecutors all together, no?
Yeah.
Kapag maayos
There will
ang
be one
preparation namin.
prosecutor, I believe, who will speak. If I remember covering correctly, is one will speak to open.
With that, Karen, then we will be checking first the rules to be imposed and to be presented by the Senate. If that will be necessary, then one of us has to stand as the lead prosecutor. That is my submission, Karen. About
Okay.
the private lawyers, yes, we will be welcoming the participation of volunteer lawyers from the private sector, no? But to this date, Karen, we have no names yet. As a matter of fact, isang meeting pa lang po ang nagaganap among all of us. And we have not discussed thoroughly the 7 articles of impeachment and even the names of the lawyers who will be joining the prosecution team from the Senate.
Okay. Now, you did say that you are more confident in handling the second article, right? Which is the alleged misuse of confidential funds of the OVP and the DepEd when the agency was under Sara Duterte's leadership. So let's talk about that particular article, all right? Because you were in the hearing, obviously, you led that hearing. So you know, alam mo na lahat ng akusasyon doon, alam mo na lahat. Is there anything new? You don't have to say it now if you want it to be a surprise. Is there more information coming in that was not in the hearing?
I believe what we were not able to present was the complete rundown by the PSA as to the total number of the recipients of confidential fund vis-a-vis the names which are actually existing in the database of the PSA.
Oo.
We were able to come up with this. Mary Grace Piatos, di ba? Kokoy Villamin, di ba? Names like that. But I believe that I have a pending request with the Blue Ribbon Committee during that time to make a complete rundown, at least kung 6,000 ba yan, total recipients ng confidential fund. Ilang names out of the total of 6,000 were actually in the database of the PSA.
Oo.
I recall wala kaming natapos na ganyan.
And-
I don't know if the PSA was able to submit that verification.
And Representative, what do you make? I interviewed Senator Bato de la Rosa on Harapan 2025 and he said, Karen, ang piatos, nagkalat yan sa Davao. Ang daming piatos sa Davao. Mayayaman ang mga piatos sa Davao. What do you make of that?
Naalala ko, tinatanong ko si Gina Acosta eh. Si Gina Acosta is also from Davao. She
Yeah.
is the SDO of OVP ba? O DepEd. She likewise mentioned na may mga piato sa Davao. But when I asked her the details about this people in Davao with the last name Piatos, ayaw na sumagot eh. I wish that Senator Bato can shed light. Sino ba itong mga piatos na tinutukoy niya sa Davao? Because nakaka-surprise lang na maraming taong may apelidong piatos, no? Kung talagang may ganyan, sana nalatag during the inquiry in aid of legislation doon sa Blue Ribbon Committee para at least na-enlighten tayo na meron nga palang mga piatos doon sa Davao. Problem is, he's making these statements not under oath, sa media lang. So if he made that during the inquiry, then we should have asked for documents which substantiate his statement na talagang maraming piatos sa Davao.
Oo.
Let's look forward to that. Baka nga may lalabas na piatos during the impeachment trial.
Baka lumabas si Mary Grace Piatos. Pero technically, this is interesting because this is an impeachment trial. And I think this is important. Can you demand and ask that those people who supposedly signed Mary Grace Piatos, etong mga iba pa, na ilabas ng kampo ng Vice President? Can the prosecution demand for that? Kung baga magkaalaman na. Kung
We can move, Karen.
yung taong yun.
We can move, and we should remember that the impeachment court has compulsory processes as well. So the prosecution team can move for the issuance of subpoena ad testificandum para dito sa mga taong gusto nating magsalaysay. Ikaw ba talaga si Mary Grace Piatos? Or subpoena duces tecum for pertinent documents we wish to see to check the veracity of the statement of the other party. So the compulsory processes of the impeachment court is very ample, and I just hope that our impeachment court judges will be resolving all motions in favor of disclosing all the truth behind these issues surrounding the impeachment trial.
All right. Now, another thing is Vice President Sara Duterte said, well, I will attend if I need to, but I won't if I don't have to. Ayaw naman niya ma-intimidate. No, baka ma-intimidate pa daw lahat kayo kapag nag-attend siya. Ang tanong ko, will the prosecution team ask her to attend? Will you want to cross-examine her?
It is my humble submission, Karen, that it is important that she attends.
Yeah.
Because during the inquiry...
This is the people's money.
Yeah. And during the inquiry before the House, hindi naman siya masyadong nag-participate eh. And the people, I believe, are waiting for her explanation kung saan napunta yung confidential fund. So if she is really concerned about her defense, I think she should take advantage of her opportunity to explain her side and present her defense, present her evidence. Otherwise, baka yung kanyang non-participation may be taken against her in as far as public opinion is concerned.
All right. Before we go, anything you would like to add? Thank you so much for being on Head Start, but I'm sure you're going to be campaigning, but you're also preparing. In the beginning, Cheese Escudero said the earliest they can tackle it was, I believe, June 2, right? When Congress resumes, they'll be tackling preliminary matters, and to a degree, the people kind of accepted the June 2, and then he suddenly announced the end of SONA. That would be ang SONA July 30 ba? Kailan ang SONA? June 30.
June 30.
June 30, so July 1.
July 1.
After the SONA. Is there anything you would like to add? Because who knows? The Senate may change its mind again.
This is an issue, Karen, of accountability and non-accountability, no? Let us always remember na as public officials, we are always subjected to public scrutiny. And we owe it to the people to explain our side if ever there are issues surrounding our service to our fellow Filipino people, no? I believe that this impeachment process is an opportunity for everyone to enlighten the Filipino people as to the issues being raised against the Vice President. And for us, the prosecution team, the Filipino people are assured that whatever actions we will be taking from this day forward will be in accord with our sworn duty for truth and for justice, Karen.
Oh. Okay, and I wanted to add, apparently, I'm being corrected on this, the SONA is on July 21. So this would mean that if this pushes through, you'll have the impeachment trial in August. I mean, frankly, is that still healthy at that point?
I think, Karen, the issues are really being demanded by the Filipino people to be explained, no?
Yeah.
To be resolved, no? At sabi mo nga kanina, a lot of legislators have commented already. This will be an election issue for those seeking for an election or re-election, no?
Yeah.
So ako naniniwala, Karen, no, na even if SPG is pronounced already, that the trial will happen after the SONA, the enthusiasm, the interest of the people on this impeachment trial will not go down, will not decline. Because These are very controversial issues that concerns the public funds, pera ng taong bayan, kung ito
Yeah.
ba'y winaldas o hindi. I think the issue will not die. As a matter of fact, it will even rise because of the position of the public officials who are seeking for election and re-election. So, pagaman matagal, yes, matagal ang ating ipaghihintay.
Yeah.
It will only, I think, even increase the interest of the Filipino people to look forward to the impeachment trial, which will happen after the son of the president.
Although my concern as a public individual, as an ordinary tax-paying citizen, is the fact that you're right, the impeachment process is to keep public officials accountable, right? But the problem is, it's also to protect the citizens from having, let's say, a corrupt public official stay in office longer than they should. That's also another thing, right?
Yes, and that is why the position of the media is
Yeah.
very important. Nowadays, Karen, no? We need to solicit the position of the senators who are seeking for election. Ano ba ang inyong position regarding this impeachment trial? Are you in favor or otherwise with regards to the impeachment of the Vice President? Dahil, as sabi mo nga, this applies not only against the Vice President, this applies to everyone who are occupying public positions, in even those who are about to occupy public positions, no? I hope that we are able to shed light on all these concerns pending before the impeachment process, no? Sana po ay magkaroon na ng kaliwanagan, and I hope the people will not stop in looking for the revelations, the truth, and the justice for matters concerning this impeachment trial.
Para sa iba pang karagdagang mga balita at impormasyon, ay huwag po nating kalimutan ang mag-like, share at comment sa video na ito, at huwag po rin nating kalimutang mag-subscribe sa aming channel, to continue supporting our contents. Maraming salamat po sa inyong panonood, at naway tangkilikin po ninyo ang aming YouTube channel.